Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Po, and today I'm doing week 34 of my 2020 reads. This week I read 2 nonfiction books, both of which were awesome. The first book that I read was Fry Bread by Kevin Noble Maillard, illustrated by Juana Martinez-Neal. This is a small children's picture book that is nonfiction about fry bread, about how fry bread is important to a lot of American Indigenous tribes' culture, about how it represents the ways that families interact, their history, their heritage. There's so much in this for such a short, small, little children's book. I really loved it. I thought the illustrations were really unique and beautiful. I loved the way that it sort of addressed a lot of topics that are actually pretty big ones within the indigenous tribes, but in a way that's very approachable for like a preschool audience. In the back of the book, there's also a bunch of author's notes about many of the things that were addressed, talking about things like why fry bread became such an important food for so many tribes, where they had been pushed off of their land, they no longer had access to a lot of the kind of foods that they were used to, and in many ways they didn't even have access to any fresh foods, and so they had to adapt and come up with new recipes. It talks also about just the displacement. Things like the Trail of Tears are mentioned, but in a way that in the book is very accessible and very appropriate for a young audience. I just was so impressed by the depth of the content given the audience that it was designed for. I really am a fan of nonfiction children's books. I just think that sometimes they do such an amazing job in a way that I think as adults we don't realize they can do. So I really loved this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I gave it to Sush as well, and he adored it as well. So I highly recommend this. It's super short. It's like a few pages long because it's a children's book, but it's really worth your read. The other nonfiction book that I read this week was just as good, although for an adult audience, which was The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind by William Kamkwamba and Bryan Maillard. This is a memoir of Kamkwamba's life, about his childhood through young adulthood, and it is so good. Basically, Kamkwamba grew up in a farming family in Malawi who went through an intense a difficult time when drought and famine hit Malawi when he was just about to enter high school, and he had to drop out of school to help his family. But once the famine had passed, he was no longer able to afford to go to school, and he instead borrowed some books from a local library where he found some physics and electricity books and decided to build himself a windmill to give electricity to his family's farm. And that kind of ingenuity of how to make things work, figuring out how to build a windmill from just scraps that he found lying around, was so impressive that a bunch of newspapers found out about it. He got some press for it. He got invited to go give a TED Talk. And then since then, he's been able to go to college to study engineering and is just really one of those people who's going to make a big difference in the lives of a lot of people in Malawi because of that passion and ingenuity. This book was just like so good. It was so well written, and you just really felt drawn in to his life and to his story. And I think that for anybody who is like me, a fan of SFF, I think actually this story is very much in line with those themes. You have literally a farm boy who, through perseverance and ingenuity and that drive to succeed, creates something that is almost magical for his village, and through that gains this opportunity to develop his skills and go further. And I think it's just that kind of inspirational, almost epic story. I mean, he goes through famine. He and his family almost died from the famine. It's really intense in the middle of that. It was such a gripping read and just so wonderful. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I definitely recommend it, although I will caution that there are some parts, especially towards the beginning, that involve quite a bit of animal death and cruelty. There's some hunting scenes, and some kind of abusive dogs. So if you're sensitive to that, I would just caution you about that going in, and maybe skip some of those scenes because they're a little intense. Okay, so that wraps up my week of reading. I absolutely love these books. If anybody else has read either of these, or you have any thoughts, any comments, any recommendations for other books that are similarly good nonfiction, I'd love to hear from you, so just leave me a comment down below.